The night felt strange from the very first moment Sandra walked onto the quiet set. The crew had wrapped hours ago, the lights were dim, and the building was almost empty. Yet something inside her told her to stay a little longer. She did not understand why, but she felt a soft pull in her chest. It was the kind of feeling people get when something important is waiting to be discovered. She took slow steps across the wooden floor, letting the faint echo guide her deeper into the studio. She had been working with Keanu for many years, and she always believed she understood him. He was gentle, respectful, calm, and humble in every scene and every moment. But for the past few weeks, she had started noticing tiny signs that something was different about him. They were not loud signs, not dramatic signs, but quiet ones that only someone who truly cared would notice. Keanu had arrived early every single day. He stayed behind even after the crew left. He refused to take long breaks. He always smiled when others looked at him, yet his shoulders carried a weight that he never spoke about. He never asked for help, and he never explained the reason behind his tired eyes. Sandra kept these observations to herself, but they stayed inside her mind like small, unanswered questions. As she walked deeper into the hallway, she heard a faint sound that made her stop. It was not loud. It was not sharp. It was just a soft shuffle, as if someone was moving something heavy with great care. Sandra followed the sound slowly. Her heart picked up speed because she did not expect anyone to be here at this hour. She turned the corner and saw a faint glow coming from the last room on the left. She stepped closer and looked inside. Her breath caught in her chest. Keanu was on his knees beside a young stage assistant who had fallen asleep on the floor from exhaustion. The assistant looked drained, his bag still beside him, his uniform still dusty from the long day. There were no cameras, no people, no noise, just Keanu quietly placing a folded jacket under the assistant's head so he would not sleep on the cold floor. Sandra stood still, unable to speak. Keanu touched the assistant's shoulder gently and whispered something kind. Then he set a bottle of water near him and placed a small snack next to it. Every move he made showed patience and care. He did not rush. He did not complain. He simply made sure the assistant would be safe and comfortable. Sandra had seen acts of kindness before, but this was different. This was not a moment meant for the world. This was not a dramatic gesture for attention. Keanu did not think anyone was watching. He believed he was alone. This was kindness in its purest form. Her mind raced back to all the times he had disappeared between scenes, all the times he said he needed a moment, all the times he stayed behind after everyone went home. She always assumed he needed personal space. But now she realized this was only the surface of something much deeper. He was doing something in the shadows that no one knew about. She stepped back quietly and held her breath, afraid of interrupting him, but her shoe made a tiny sound when it brushed against the wall. Keanu looked up immediately. He did not panic. He did not hide anything. He simply gave her a soft smile, the kind that said everything without using many words. "Hey, Sandra," he said in a gentle voice. "Did you forget something?" She nodded slowly, still processing what she had seen. "I left my script," she replied, but her voice shook a little. She tried to control it, but the emotion inside her was too strong. Keanu stood up, brushed the dust from his knees, and looked at the sleeping assistant again. "He was really tired," he said softly. "I did not want him to hurt his back on the floor." His words were simple. His tone was calm. But to Sandra, those simple words revealed an ocean of things he never spoke about. She watched him for a moment, the soft light highlighting his calm expression. There was no pride in his eyes, no desire for praise. He had done what he did because it was the right thing to do, and it was clear that he had been doing things like this for a long time. Sandra walked out of the room beside him, but her heart carried a new heaviness. She suddenly understood that Keanu had been carrying something alone, something the world had never been allowed to see, something hidden behind his quiet smile. As they stepped into the hallway, she looked at him and spoke gently. "You always help people, Keanu, even when nobody knows." He shrugged softly. "I just try to do what feels right," he said. "That is all." But Sandra knew there was more. She felt it deep inside her. Keanu was hiding sacrifices that no one had ever talked about. And for the first time, she felt a rising need to uncover the truth, not for fame, not for drama, but because the world deserved to know the heart behind the person they admired. And as she walked with him through the quiet hallway, she made a silent promise. She would find out what he was hiding. And when she did, she would tell the world the truth. The next morning, the set looked normal on the surface. Crew members walked around with coffee cups, Actors rehearsed lines, and bright sunlight streamed through the tall studio windows. But Sandra felt something different inside her. She kept replaying the scene from last night again and again. She found herself watching Keanu with new eyes, trying to understand how much she had missed. Keanu arrived early again, greeting everyone with a warm smile and gentle voice. He acted calm, relaxed, and ready to work as if nothing had happened the night before. But now Sandra knew better. She watched him from a distance, noticing each small detail that had once seemed normal but now carried a deeper meaning. He handed a warm drink to a tired stunt performer. He carried cables for a technician whose arm was wrapped in bandages. He gave his own chair to an extra who said her legs hurt. He smiled at everyone, but never made a big deal out of it. He blended into the flow of the set so quietly that most people overlooked the depth of his actions. Sandra wanted to talk to him about last night. She wanted to ask him why he stayed late, why he chose to help others silently, and why he kept his kindness hidden from the world. But something held her back. A quiet voice inside her told her to observe a little longer. Maybe she would see more. Soon after, the team prepared for a difficult emotional scene that would test both her and Keanu's acting skills. The director explained the details, but Sandra noticed Keanu watching the crew instead of the script. He was looking at a young cameraman whose hands were shaking slightly. The boy looked pale and stressed, as if something was wrong. When the director walked away, Keanu approached the cameraman quietly. Sandra pretended to focus on her script while she listened. "Are you all right?" Keanu asked gently. The cameraman hesitated. "I am fine," he whispered, but his voice broke. Keanu lowered his tone. "If you need a moment, take it. This place can be heavy." The cameraman finally spoke the truth. "My mother is in the hospital. I came here because I need the job. I did not want to bother anyone." Keanu nodded slowly. "You are not bothering anyone," he said. "Go take care of her. I will talk to the team for you." The boy's eyes filled with tears. He tried to speak, but Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder and guided him to sit down. Sandra felt her chest tighten. She had expected kindness from Keanu, but this level of silent protection was something she had not seen before. He did not hesitate. He did not ask questions. He simply gave support like it was the most natural thing in the world. After talking privately with the producer, Keanu returned and slipped an envelope into the cameraman's hand. "This is nothing," he said softly. "Just use it for travel and food. Be with your mother." The cameraman shook his head. "I cannot take this," he said. Keanu smiled. "Please, let me help. You would do the same for someone one day." The boy finally accepted. He hugged Keanu with trembling arms before leaving the set. Sandra stood frozen because she had seen everything. This was not a simple act of kindness. This was a sacrifice. The envelope was thick. She could guess what he had done. Yet Keanu acted like it was not important. Later that afternoon, when everyone took a break, Sandra found Keanu sitting alone on a wooden crate, staring quietly at the ground. He looked deep in thought, as if something heavy lived inside him that he never shared. She walked over and sat beside him. "I saw what you did," she said softly. Keanu looked up slowly, almost surprised. "What do you mean?" "You helped him," she said. "You gave him support he did not even ask for." He shrugged gently. "He needed help, that is all." Sandra took a breath. "Keanu, people do not do what you do, not like this, not so quietly." He paused for a moment. His expression softened, and a faint sadness crossed his eyes. "I have seen too many people stand alone when they should not," he said. "I do not want anyone to feel that way." Sandra felt a deep ache in her heart. There was a story behind those words, a story he had never shared. She wanted to ask him about it, but his quiet expression told her he was not ready. Instead, she said, "You do not sleep enough, you do not rest, you give too much." He smiled gently. "I am fine." But Sandra could see the truth. His eyes were tired, his shoulders were tense, he was carrying more than anyone realized. As the day continued, Sandra found herself watching him more closely. She noticed how he always stepped aside so others could shine, how he listened more than he spoke, how he helped without attention, how he supported people with patience and calm strength. But there was something else she noticed too. Behind every act of kindness, there was a small moment when Keanu looked away, as if hiding something painful. A memory, a burden, a secret. That night after the shoot ended, Sandra stayed behind again. She wanted to see if he would stay too. She hid behind a set wall and watched. And just like she expected, he remained long after everyone left. But tonight, he did not help someone else. Tonight, he held his head in his hands and took a slow, heavy breath. Sandra stepped closer, her heart breaking. This was the moment she understood something deeper. Keanu was not just helping others. He was hiding something from himself. Something that hurt. And she knew she had to find out what it was. The following morning, Sandra arrived on set earlier than usual. She did not tell anyone why. She just knew she needed time to think before the day began. She sat on one of the tall wooden stools near the makeup station and stared at her reflection. Her thoughts were heavy, and the image from last night kept flashing before her eyes. Keanu sitting alone in the dark. Keanu holding his head like he was carrying a silent storm. Keanu whispering something she could not fully hear. It bothered her. It worried her. And it pushed her into a new level of determination she had never felt before. A few minutes later, Keanu walked into the room with his usual calm smile. He looked fresh on the surface, but Sandra could still see the tiredness hidden beneath. His steps were steady, his posture relaxed, yet his eyes held a long distance inside them, as if he was living two lives at once. "Morning, Sandra," he said gently. "Morning," she replied, watching him carefully. "Did you sleep well?" He gave a small laugh. "I slept enough." She knew it was not true. She had seen the truth with her own eyes last night. But she did not push him, not yet. The makeup team arrived soon after, and the usual morning rhythm filled the room. But everyone around them acted as if nothing strange was happening. Only Sandra carried the weight of what she knew. Only she understood that behind Keanu's quiet smile there was something unseen, something that went far beyond kindness. During the first few hours of filming, Sandra kept observing him in small moments. He still helped people without attracting attention. He still spoke softly to those who were stressed. He still gave away his own comfort to others without hesitation. But now she began to notice a pattern. Every time someone thanked him, every time someone praised him or showed gratitude, Keanu changed a little. He would look away for a moment, like the praise made him uncomfortable. He would step back, almost as if he did not deserve the kindness given to him. Sometimes he would even smile politely and then quickly find a reason to walk away. Sandra felt her throat tighten each time she saw this. It was as if Keanu believed kindness should only go outwards from him, never return to him. As if receiving care was something he had taught himself not to accept. After lunch, the director called for a break. Sandra used the moment to walk outside, hoping fresh air would clear her mind. But the moment she stepped into the quiet courtyard, she heard soft voices on the side path. She recognized Keanu's voice, even though he was speaking quietly. She moved closer without making noise. Keanu stood beside an older crew member who worked with props. The man looked worried, holding a piece of paper in his hands. Sandra could see him shaking slightly. "I do not know how I will cover this bill," the man whispered. "My wife needs treatment, but the insurance only covers a small part. I did not want to bother anyone with my problems." Keanu placed a hand on the man's arm with deep care. "You are not bothering anyone," he said softly. "Let me help." "I cannot accept money from you," the man replied, tears forming in his eyes. "You are not accepting it from me," Keanu said gently. "You are allowing someone who cares to share the weight with you." The man cried quietly, grateful and overwhelmed. Keanu reached into his pocket and handed him another thick envelope. Sandra felt her breath stop. This was the second envelope she had seen. This was not a small amount. This was sacrifice, real sacrifice, more than most people would ever do in silence. After comforting the man, Keanu walked away and headed toward the lower hallway. Sandra felt something strong inside her chest and followed him. She found him alone again, sitting on a wooden bench near the storage room. He stared at the floor, breathing slowly, gathering himself. She walked toward him. "Keanu," she said gently, "how long have you been doing this?" He looked up with calm eyes. "Doing what?" "Helping everyone quietly," she said. "Giving your money away, giving your time away, carrying other people's problems when they do not even ask. How long have you been doing this without telling anyone?" Keanu took a deep breath and looked away. Sandra saw his jaw tighten just slightly, not in anger, but in emotion he kept buried. "A long time," he whispered. Sandra sat beside him. "Why do you hide it?" He took another breath, slow and heavy. Then he said something that made her chest shake. "Because I do not deserve attention for doing what is right," he replied. "I do not want the world to think I am trying to be a hero. I do not want people to look at me differently. Kindness should be quiet. It should not feel like a reward." Sandra looked at him with soft eyes. "But you are carrying so much alone." He smiled gently. "I am used to it." She felt a sting in her heart. "But you do not have to be." Keanu shook his head lightly. "Everyone has their own battles, Sandra. I have mine too. I just choose not to talk about them. It is easier to help others than to explain my own scars." Her eyes softened even more. She knew he meant every word. He was not pretending. He was not acting. He was living inside a quiet hurt that he covered with kindness. "Keanu," she whispered, "what are you hiding?" Keanu did not answer. He closed his eyes for a moment as if fighting something inside, something heavy, something old. Before he could speak, a crew member called out for him from across the hallway. Keanu opened his eyes and stood up quickly, relieved by the interruption. "We should get back," he said softly. He walked away, but Sandra did not move. She stood still, watching him disappear down the hall. In that moment, she understood something with absolute clarity. Keanu had been helping others, not only because he was kind. He was helping others because he was running from something inside himself. And whatever that hidden pain was, Sandra knew she had to uncover it. Not to expose him, but to free him. Sandra arrived on set the next day with one thought filling her mind. She could no longer watch Keanu carry so much hidden weight and pretend he was fine. She had seen enough to know something deeper was happening. She had seen enough to understand that behind every quiet smile, there was a silent storm. But she still did not know where the storm came from. And today, she promised herself she would find out. The day began like any other. Crew members arranged equipment, assistants rushed from one corner to another, and the director walked through the set with a list of scenes in his hand. But behind the normal noise of the morning, Sandra kept her eyes on Keanu. He greeted everyone gently. He asked if they had eaten. He checked on the stunt team. He made sure a nervous young actor felt confident before the scene. He even fixed a small tear on a crew member's shirt by taking out a needle from the wardrobe box and quietly stitching it together. Sandra watched everything with growing heaviness in her heart. He was giving so much of himself. But nobody knew what it was costing him. During their first scene of the day, Sandra could feel something different in Keanu's energy. He delivered every line perfectly, his expressions soft and honest, but something behind his eyes was heavier than usual. It was like he was acting through a thick layer of pain he refused to release. At one point, his hand trembled slightly when he reached for a prop, and Sandra noticed it instantly. When the director said, "Cut," she stepped closer and whispered, "Are you all right, Keanu?" He smiled softly, "I am fine." The same answer every time. But today, Sandra refused to accept it. During the lunch break, she followed him quietly. Keanu walked out of the building and crossed the parking lot, heading toward the far corner where the old trailers were kept. It was a quiet place. People rarely went there unless they wanted to be alone. Sandra waited until he disappeared behind one trailer. Then she walked after him slowly. When she reached the corner, she stopped. Keanu was sitting on the ground with his back against the trailer wall. His head was tilted down, and both of his hands covered his face. His breathing was uneven, and his shoulders shook softly as if he was fighting something too big to hide. The sight broke her heart. She walked closer and knelt beside him. "Keanu," she whispered. He looked up quickly, wiping his face with one hand. He tried to smile. He tried to pretend nothing was wrong. But today his eyes gave him away completely. They were filled with quiet pain he could not hide anymore. "Sorry," he whispered. "I just needed a moment." Sandra touched his arm gently. "You do not have to be sorry for feeling something." Keanu looked away, staring at the ground. "I do not want anyone to see me like this." "Why not?" she asked softly. He took a breath that trembled in his chest. "Because I am supposed to be strong." Sandra shook her head. "You are strong, but strength does not mean hiding everything until it hurts you." He stayed silent, fighting the emotion rising inside him. Sandra waited patiently. Finally, he spoke in a quiet whisper. "I lost someone a long time ago. Sandra felt her heart drop. His voice was steady, but the sadness inside it was deep, like a quiet storm that had lived inside him for years. I do not talk about it, he continued. I do not want to reopen old pain, but sometimes, on days like this, it all comes back. Sandra nodded gently. You carry so much for others. Maybe a part of you does it because you could not help the person you lost. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment, and tears escaped from the corners. I could not save them, he whispered. No matter how much I wanted to, and after that day I promised myself I would never ignore anyone's struggle again. Sandra felt her chest tighten. That is why you help everyone, that is why you stay late, that is why you give so much, because you do not want anyone to feel alone like you felt. Keanu nodded slowly. I know I cannot fix the past, he said. But if I can make even one person's day easier, even one moment less painful, then maybe the world becomes a little better than the one I lost. Sandra felt tears rise in her own eyes, not because she felt sad for him, but because she saw the depth of his heart in a way she never had before. This was not just kindness. This was not just generosity. This was grief transformed into compassion. This was pain turned into light. She placed her hand on his and squeezed softly. You are not alone anymore, Keanu. You do not have to carry everything by yourself. He tried to smile, but it was soft and fragile. She continued, you help others because your heart is huge, but someone needs to help you too. Someone needs to remind you that you deserve the same kindness you give. Tears filled Keanu's eyes again, and he lowered his head. I do not know how to accept that. Sandra took a deep breath. Then let me be the first person to teach you. He looked at her with eyes full of gratitude and fear at the same time. For the first time, Keanu was not hiding anything. He was not pretending to be fine. He was not running. He was simply human. They sat together in silence for a few minutes, listening to the soft wind move through the quiet space behind the trailers. It was the kind of silence that felt healing, not heavy. The kind of silence that came when someone finally stopped hiding and allowed themselves to be understood. After a while, Sandra spoke again. Keanu, the world sees you as strong because you never complain, but real strength is not about being perfect. Real strength is about being honest, about letting someone see the real you, about letting someone stand beside you. Keanu breathed slowly, letting her words settle inside him. For the first time, he felt the weight shift. Not fully, but enough to breathe. Soon, a crew member called them back for the next scene. Keanu stood up and wiped his face, and Sandra stood beside him, offering quiet support. He looked at her and whispered, "Thank you for not walking away." She smiled softly, "I never will." As they walked back to the set together, Sandra made a silent promise inside her heart. She would not let Keanu shoulder this burden alone anymore. She would support him. She would protect him. And one day she would tell the world the truth about the sacrifices he made. Not to expose him, but to honor him. And that promise would soon lead to a moment the world would never forget. The next few days on set felt different, not because anything changed in the work, but because Sandra now understood the truth behind Keanu's quiet heart. Every time she saw him helping someone, she felt a deeper respect than ever before. Every time he stepped aside to let others shine, she felt a stronger desire to protect him. And every time she noticed the pain behind his eyes, she felt a rising determination to finally let the world see the real man behind the gentle smile. Sandra watched him closely, but she did not push him. She let him breathe. She let him feel safe. She let him carry himself with the calm dignity he always had. But inside her, she knew something was building, something that could not stay hidden forever, something that deserved to come into the light. It happened on the day of the biggest public event for the film. The studio had arranged a large press conference with cameras, reporters, fans, and media groups from all around the world. The cast was supposed to talk about the movie, share behind-the-scenes moments, and answer polite questions. Everyone was excited. Except Sandra. She was thinking about the promise she made to herself. She had watched Keanu carry other people's pain silently for too long. She had watched him give away pieces of himself without letting anyone give anything back. She had watched him help strangers while hiding his own hurt. She had watched him sacrifice sleep, money, comfort, and peace, yet walk into every room with a soft smile that hid everything he felt. And she knew it was time the world understood him. The event hall was bright and full of energy. Cameras flashed from every angle. Fans cheered loudly when the cast walked onto the stage. Keanu gave his usual small wave, humble and gentle, trying not to attract too much attention. He sat beside Sandra, completely unaware of what she had decided. The press conference began with simple questions. Reporters asked about the filming process, funny moments, and challenges they faced on set. Sandra answered politely. Keanu spoke calmly. Everything felt smooth and normal. But inside Sandra's chest, a quiet storm was growing, filling her with courage she never felt before. Then a reporter stood up and asked a question that changed everything. "Sandra, what do you think made this film so special for the cast and the crew?" The question was harmless, but the meaning behind it opened a door Sandra had been waiting to walk through. She took a deep breath and looked at Keanu. He smiled gently, unaware of what she was about to do. Sandra turned back to the microphone and spoke in a soft, steady voice. "This film is special," she said, "not because of the story we told on screen, but because of a story that happened behind the scenes." The room fell silent. Keanu looked at her slowly, confused by her sudden shift in tone. Sandra continued, "There is someone on this team who carried us in ways the world does not know. Someone who stayed late when everyone went home. Someone who helped people quietly without expecting anything back. Someone who covered bills for crew members in trouble. Someone who never asked for recognition or praise but made sacrifices every single day." Keanu froze. His breath shortened, and his eyes widened with fear. Sandra felt her heart pounding, but she did not stop. "That person is Keanu," she said gently. The room erupted in whispers and stunned silence. Keanu's eyes dropped to the floor. He did not know what to do. He tried to speak, but Sandra placed her hand on his softly, grounding him. She continued with a voice full of emotion. "I watched him help a young cameraman go home to his sick mother. I watched him give money to someone whose family needed treatment. I saw him carry equipment when the crew was tired. I saw him comfort people who were breaking down. He does so much without letting anyone notice." Cameras flashed. People gasped. Some in the crowd even wiped tears from their eyes. Keanu sat completely still, overwhelmed. Sandra leaned forward and spoke into the microphone again, this time with a trembling voice. "Keanu is not just an actor. He is a person who turns his own pain into kindness. He carries memories that hurt him, but he still chooses to heal others. He has a heart that works even when it hurts. People think they know him, but they have not seen the sacrifices he makes in silence." Keanu finally lifted his head. His eyes were filled with tears he had been holding back for years. Sandra squeezed his hand softly, grounding him again, letting him know she was there. She then spoke the words that changed the room completely. "He does not talk about it, but he should not have to carry the world alone. He deserves to be seen. He deserves to be appreciated. He deserves rest, love, and kindness too." The entire audience rose to their feet in a wave of applause that shook the room. Keanu tried to look down, but the sound surrounded him like a soft storm. It was not loud in a harsh way. It was loud in a loving way. It was the kind of applause that came from respect, not from noise. Fans held their hands over their hearts. Crew members nodded, confirming everything Sandra said. Reporters lowered their cameras for a moment, touched by the raw truth they had just heard. Keanu turned to Sandra slowly. "Why did you do this?" he whispered. Sandra looked into his eyes with gentle honesty. "Because the world needed to know the truth. Because kindness like yours should not stay hidden forever. Because you deserve the same love you give away." Keanu's lips trembled. The applause grew louder. And for the first time in a very long time, Keanu did not hide his emotions. A single tear rolled down his face. Then another. And Sandra reached out and held his hand tighter, letting him feel safe in the light he had always avoided. In that moment, the world finally saw Keanu not as a movie star, but as a human being filled with quiet strength and deep compassion. And Sandra knew this moment would stay with him forever. The applause in the room continued like a rising wave that refused to fade. It was warm, human, and full of respect. People were not clapping for fame. They were clapping for truth, for kindness, for the heart Sandra had revealed to the world. Keanu sat still, overwhelmed by emotions he had buried for years. He had always believed quiet kindness was enough. He thought the world did not need to know. He feared attention more than anything because he never wanted his actions to look like pride. But now, as he listened to the soft thunder of hands coming together, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt seen. Slowly, the applause faded, but the energy in the room remained strong. Reporters lowered their cameras, some wiping their eyes. Crew members nodded at Keanu with deep respect. Fans held signs close to their hearts, whispering his name with admiration. Keanu finally lifted the microphone with a shaky hand. Everyone fell silent. He took a slow breath, his voice soft but steady. "Thank you," he whispered. "I never wanted my actions to be noticed. I only wanted people to feel safe." His voice trembled, but he continued. "I lost someone important to me a long time ago. I could not help them the way I wanted. Since then, I promised myself I would not allow anyone near me to feel alone. If I could lighten someone's pain, even a little, then that was enough for me." The room listened with full attention. No noise, no whispers. Everyone felt the weight of his words. He looked at Sandra with gentle eyes. "I never expected you to say anything," he said. "I never wanted the world to know." Sandra smiled softly. "I know, but you were carrying everything by yourself. You were helping everyone but never letting anyone help you." Keanu lowered his head as she spoke, emotion rising again. Sandra continued with a warm voice. "Sometimes the world needs to understand the quiet strength of people like you. Kindness is not weakness. Sacrifice is not weakness. It is bravery, and you have been brave for too long without anyone knowing." Keanu looked at her again, and this time he did not hide his tears. The audience stayed silent, moved by the raw honesty unfolding before them. After the event, as the crowd left and the lights dimmed, Keanu and Sandra walked backstage together. The energy of the moment was still wrapped around them like a soft blanket. Keanu took a slow breath, his steps lighter than they had been in years. "Sandra," he said quietly, "I do not know how to accept what happened today." She smiled gently. "You do not have to accept it all at once. Just let yourself feel it. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself know that people appreciate the heart you tried so hard to hide." He nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. They reached a quiet hallway behind the event hall. It was empty and calm, with soft light glowing from the ceiling. Keanu stopped walking and leaned against the wall for a moment, closing his eyes. Sandra stood beside him, offering silent support. After a few seconds, he spoke again. "I am afraid," he whispered. Sandra turned toward him. "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that people will expect too much from me now," he said. "Afraid that they will look at me differently." Sandra shook her head softly. "People will look at you with respect, not pressure, not expectation, respect, because the truth was beautiful, the truth showed who you really are." Keanu opened his eyes and looked at her with deep sincerity. "Thank you for telling it." She smiled. "You deserved it." The emotions between them settled into something warm and peaceful. Keanu straightened his posture and stood taller, as if the weight he carried for years had finally shifted. Over the next few hours, social media exploded with messages. Fans wrote about his kindness. Crew members confirmed every story Sandra had shared. People posted videos from the press conference, celebrating the quiet sacrifices he had made. News outlets covered the moment with admiration, calling it one of the most honest events in recent years. But Keanu did not read any comments that night. Instead, he sat quietly in his home, thinking about the moment Sandra spoke for him. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel the emotion he had run from for so long. He let the truth sit with him. He let the applause soften the sharp edges of his memories. He let gratitude fill the spaces where old sadness once lived. And as he breathed slowly, he felt something new. Freedom. The next day, when he arrived on set, the entire crew stood waiting for him. No one spoke at first. Then, one by one, they stepped forward with soft smiles and warm eyes. Some hugged him. Some thanked him. Some simply placed a hand on his shoulder. Keanu did not know where to look. He felt overwhelmed again, but this time it was gentle. This time it was safe. Sandra walked to him last. "You see," she said softly, "the world did not judge you. The world embraced you." Keanu smiled in a way she had never seen before. It was lighter, calmer, more open. "Maybe I needed this," he whispered. Sandra nodded. "You did." As the day went on, Keanu felt a shift inside himself. He still helped people, but now he did not hide from their gratitude. He still gave kindness, but now he allowed kindness to return to him. He still carried memories of his past, but now they felt less heavy because someone finally understood. And for the first time, he was not walking alone. The story of his hidden sacrifices spread across the world, inspiring millions. People talked about kindness with new respect. People shared their own stories of compassion, and everywhere Keanu went, he felt the gentle warmth of appreciation that no longer scared him. Because Sandra had given him something priceless. She had given him visibility. She had given him understanding. She had given him freedom from silence. And in the quiet final moment of the story, as the sun set across the studio lot, Keanu walked beside Sandra with a calm smile, knowing something simple and beautiful. The truth did not break him. It healed him.